Hello, NFT land. I'm CreatoriousRex, and we are back with another twin. That's this week in NFT news. And wow, we have a lot of it today. And it's going to cover everything from marketplaces to projects, a whole lot going on. And with me today is my co host, Skot Leach. Hello, Scott.
Howdy.
So I'm pretty excited here to talk about all this news because, wow, it's almost like everyone in 2021 decided, hey, NFTs are a thing, and they put it in their like annual budget. And in November, it got approved, and then it took them the first 3 months of the year to sort of get their act together, and then all of a sudden, it's all hitting. And last week in March, first week in April.
Yeah, definitely. The speed of adoption is wild.
You know, it definitely harkens back to like 1998, the early days of the internet, like 97, 98, when stuff was just happening every week. It just seems like it's accelerating. So we've got lots of things to talk about on brands as well, which we do. We're not going to actually cover too much data today because there's so much news. We'll come back with data next week. But given the fact that we've got so many stories to cover, and I think they're all significant in their own way, I figure we'll just get started. That good with you?
Cool. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, folks. And before we get started, just if you haven't looked in this channel, there's also a video for the NFT artist demo day recap. That's the previous video to this. We had a dozen artists presenting unannounced, first to the world NFT projects, a lot of really novel concepts there. And so myself and a couple other people involved in the Niftorian project did a quick recap because there is no video of that. That was like a private event. You had to be there to see it. But we broke it down because we watched the artists through this whole process. We saw what they presented. We're pretty familiar with it. So we gave people that. And a lot of those projects still are yet to be announced. So if you want some early access, early visibility into some really novel things that are coming up, everything from an Emmy award-winning artist with a new project. There's the founder of Techspressionism. There's a 3D animated film for kids that's going to be going to a film festival. There's a charitable project to restore coral reefs. There's a couple PFPs. There's a lot of fine art in there. So I think people are really going to like it. So definitely check that out. That's in the Niftorious YouTube channel, Niftorian, and check that out. Okay. So the first thing, Scott, we're going to talk about marketplaces this week. And I'll just make sure we share my screen here. And the first story up is our good old friends at OpenSea. Now, they haven't done this yet, but they are going to start accepting credit cards. Is the world coming to an end? Armageddon, apocalypse.
Yeah, this will be interesting. I think as we start to see more, we talked about it at the start of the show, is there's more NFT adoption. How do you get on board regular folks to that who don't know about blockchain? And I don't know if it's strategic or if it's corporations mitigating risks. Say like, okay, well, we have to allow credit card. Like, I don't know what there's tons of rationale, obviously, but it feels like it could. Obviously, it pushes up against some of the tenets of blockchain and what a lot of folks like about it. But at the same time, it gives lots of opportunities to folks creating NFTs. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And just, it's funny to see Apple Pay in that. Maybe that's how they're dipping their foot into this stuff and allowing it, because it seems like there's lots of opportunity here for, we know how often it is easy to get scammed. And when you involve a credit card company, like, are they going to be on the hook to reimburse folks for that? And how long are they going to tolerate that before they?
I think it's a credit card purchase. Now Coinbase, it's been said that Coinbase is going to have this as well, right? So this isn't like the first time we've heard of NFT marketplaces allowing this. And Coinbase
Nifty Gateway does it too, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Nifty Gateway does it.
Yeah.
And if you think about but Coinbase in particular, like, they know custodial wallets, right? So OpenSea, is this going to be a custodial wallet? It has to be, right?
It must be on
chain. So that's a whole nother layer
Yeah,
of
that'll be
risk.
curious. Yeah.
So what if OpenSea gets hacked and people take all the things out, you know, and
Yeah.
then what happens? Like the credit card payment, fraud, all these other things. I think it's really interesting. But I will say, going back to the original point that you were making, it might be kind of significant because we think of funnels, right? Anytime we're talking about
Mhm.
new adoption behavior of consumers, we want these funnels, like, so they do this, they do that, and then all of a sudden, they've bought something, right? Well, in this case, right now, we have this really significant point of friction at the beginning. If you are not in the crypto world, you have to learn what a crypto wallet is. You have to
Yeah.
download and configure a crypto wallet, which is not terrible, but it is kind of, because like
Yeah.
the 24 word seed phrase and just understanding what that is, and like everyone warning you that the world is coming to an end if you lose that. And then after that, you still have to learn like how to go to a site to mint, and what it is you're
Yeah.
signing with blind faith,
Yeah.
and like how the thing, and then the transactions, like, and if you're going to Polygon or Matic or something like that, with Matic, like everything disappears for 15 minutes before it comes back. I mean,
Mhm.
there's a lot of little nuances here. And so I say,
Yeah.
okay, that's a big friction point. But what they've just done is, this is magical. I already know how to use a credit card. So I buy something. Now
Yes. Yeah.
I have some sort of titled ownership to something. And now if I want to sell it, or I want to gather some additional features, like being able to join in on an event or be in the Discord as verified or something like that, then I have a higher incentive to go through all of that friction to learn how it all works than before that, when a lot of people just throw up their hands and be like, oh, this seems too complicated. Even though I kind of like that idea, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing I still wrestle with is, and I assume this will change over time, but I look at ETH differently than a dollar amount. And if some of the purchases I've made on NFTs using ETH, if I saw that going to a credit card, I would not pull the
You'd
trigger
freak
on
out
that.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Um,
I think for stuff that's, if you're talking about mints or something where people are paying under $1,000 for something, that's reasonable. But if you get to the point where you're, you know, buying a 5 ETH NFT or a 10 ETH NFT, that's a lot.
yeah, and that might be much larger than a lot of people's credit card limits as well.
Yeah.
And like, it's also, it's a large value going into this custodial wallet, whatever form it takes. Um, but I don't know. It's sort of irrational on your part, because there is a
It's totally
fungibility.
irrational. Yeah, yeah,
It's just because you have
yeah.
this mental view that Ethereum is for something different than cash.
Mhm. Yeah, but that's how I guess that's just how I think about user experience sometimes. Like, what are the beliefs someone's going into it with, and how do
Yeah.
you
Well, I think that's true for you, but it's also, that's not going to be true for
True.
new people, because they don't have any Ethereum, right? Like, this is the whole point.
Yes.
And what we have right now is we have awareness, and then we have this configuration step of getting a wallet and learning, and then you have to do a little
Mhm.
bit more learning how to use that, and then you have the purchase. And the biggest point of friction is that configuration step, essentially. So what they've done is they've moved that down the chain till after they've collected cash, which is kind of brilliant. I mean, that's like, if you're OpenSea and you want to say, oh, how can I grab more money? How can I get more
Yeah.
transactions, get more users? They're sort of stalled out. They were doing something like 100,000 new wallets a month, and now that's like less. They've sort of run up against the limit. Okay, well, we need to have an easier way to get people in. So that's a good way to do it. So I like the idea. Like, it's brilliant marketing to like say, oh,
Mhm.
let's push the point of friction to after you purchase, after you've spent money, because then they're more incentivized. But I don't know. I think it's gonna. There's a lot of unanswered questions that will have to come through.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I still don't I'm still waiting for them to do a coin or something. That seems like they're the play, but I guess there's
Oh,
lots of
well, we can
risk with
talk
that
about
as
one of their
well.
competitors as a coin.
Yeah.
But we'll do that in a minute. Let's talk about the other thing, Axie Infinity. I don't know how closely you've been following this, but the Ronin network, which they created, there's Axie Infinity, there's trades on OpenSea. Then they created the Ronin network, so it used to be faster, and they could keep the transaction fees for all of the token changes. And this is a game. A lot of people will be familiar with this. The issue was they had this huge hack on the Ronin network. There was a vulnerability that people had noticed. It took them like 5 days to figure out there was a hack. Now, when I say huge hack, I'm talking somewhere between $625 and $675 million, which I'm coming back and I'm thinking, this is like the scale of what happened to the original DAO that almost took the Ethereum network down. That's like, we're talking about, in fact, this is more, I think, but I'd have to look back at that because I don't think about that issue as much. But anyway, big deal. Okay. So I'm glad we didn't talk about this last week. I'm glad we're talking about it now, because last week it was just in process. Took them like 4 days to figure it out. $600 million you can go to the Ethereum wallet address, which is sitting in an account, which is a whole lot of money. And what they've decided is they raised $150 million. They also have a lot of cash because they just raised, I think, $300 million in October. They're actually going to reimburse everybody. What do you think of that?
I'm sort of blown away that they're doing that. I think it's good. It's good in that it restores some faith, but it also still, the fear still lingers, right? Like, what's to stop this from happening again? I don't know. I'd be, that's so much money.
I know. Well, I'm starting to think, okay, so a lot of money's gone into this. I want to say that their last valuation was $3 billion or something like that. Okay. They've got 2.2 million users. There's a lot of value to that. There's clearly a lot of cash going through there in terms in Ethereum denominated value. And but then I'm just thinking, geez, all these companies that are investing in this space, do they need to basically discount valuation with the assumption that at some point some large sum is just going to be pulled out? Because basically more than the money that was invested last fall is now taken out of this. Now they are working with authorities and they think they might reclaim some of it, but the wallet owner started throwing everything through Tornado Cash in the last couple of days. So let's see what they get back, right? And if they do get it back, then it's like straight to the balance sheet, right? Because they've already paid out. There's no claims, right? Everyone's been made whole, and then like any work that they do to get that back, it's almost like a collections agency, right? They get the full value of that. But yeah, it's just really interesting, this idea that it's so much money that they're just saying, yep, well, we're going to make everybody whole.
Or do they hold,
what does that mean for valuations of these businesses?
Or do they hold are they holding land or other assets? They're not creating new assets, but they're holding other NFTs or currency that they can give out in place of replacing the.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's cleanest to do this one-to-one. I mean, you certainly don't have the legal ramifications of people saying, hey, you were negligent, all these other types of things. And you don't have, it sort of fixes the short-term reputational damage, and it might even come out that it's stronger. Like people are like, look what they did. This is amazing. And if you think about the user base, it's like a lot of people in third world countries, it's like a lot of money, like more wealth than they've ever had in their families. It's amazing.
Here's the really impressive part of it, I think, is like, if they're willing to reimburse people, what does that say about how much the potential they see in the space, right? Like, they know
it's not just potential. I mean, they've got 2.2 million people. They traded something like $10 billion in assets last year. So yeah, there's a lot of money going. Now that's not $10 billion that goes right to Axie. People know that they have transaction fees and all these other things, but it's a lot of money. So I think it's interesting. I mean, I don't know what that represents. 600 million. If they were insured, any of these things, like, we don't know. But okay, so is the world coming to an end with Axie Infinity or with OpenSea accepting credit cards? I say the answer is no, but like, boy, both are pretty interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Next up.
Just in those two stories back to back too, like the fact credit card company, it just seems funny that that we have big institutions willing to get risky. Anyway, yeah.
Well, look at this.
We can
Look
move
at
on.
this risk. So
Okay.
I've seen different numbers. Crypto Slam, it's done some analysis. They did this back in January, where they estimated maybe 90% of all trading on LooksRare was wash trading.
Mhm.
And that's cropped up again. It's not clear to me that there is new data, but someone's saying 95% now. I looked for it, but I couldn't find a new report. What do you think about LooksRare, wash trading, the competition to OpenSea for this general purpose marketplace in Ethereum?
I think the competition against OpenSea is fantastic, and I think just in general that's a good thing. All this stuff starts out with some sort of incentive to get people involved. So like, I get the complaint about the wash trading stuff, but every single coin that's out there, you get something. Like if you're involved in the space, you get it, and that's what stimulates the economy and gets people using it. So it's like, you're trying to kickstart it. There's a point at which that becomes excessive, I guess. And obviously now, if these numbers are right, like that's a lot of.
Well, maybe a necessary evil, right? So if you think about like PayPal,
Yeah.
right? They were bleeding, hemorrhaging money for a long period of time because they were given $5, $10, $50, depending on the
Hmm.
promotion they were doing, to everyone who signed up a friend. They were like putting in both their accounts. It's like these $10 things.
Yeah.
And they were just hemorrhaging money. But it grew the user base so much that
Exactly. Yeah.
then, with a little luck and some very deft moves on their part, they were able to turn it into an enormous business.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's like yeah. I think until people stop using open OpenSea and start using LooksRare for regular trades, this is how it's gonna look. I don't know.
I don't think I
I
think
think it's happening everywhere, and to point the finger at LooksRare alone is not like this is going on all over the place.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But it seems kind of egregious. Is there really that much wash trading? Because the other marketplaces don't have the incentive structure that LooksRare has because they don't have coins. So the
Yes,
fact that they've got these coins
true.
and they've got staking and they have incentives around that and transactions, it's going to happen. They just need to tweak it in such a way that the
Yeah,
Meebits owners don't just like keep sending tokens back and forth between their wallets. Um, but
yeah,
like the numbers are really significant. They were talking about like, people were making hundreds of thousands of dollars in US currency, basically just wash trading back and forth and then
wow.
getting out of the tokens. Um, so, I've got some, I have no problem with
I've got
LooksRare. They gave me a bunch of tokens. I staked them. I got some WETH. I actually just threw it all back into
mhm.
the Looks double compounder. Um, yeah, we'll see what happens. It was free to
Yeah,
me. It wasn't like I ever said
I'm
that was
looking at it right.
my asset.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I have my looks staked, and it looks good to me. It's been, it went down, and then it's been coming back up recently. It's I mean, full disclosure, I have a vested interest in looks doing well, so, there's that,
Yeah.
but I haven't done there are things I just like about uh, I love the competition aspect. I think there's some things that LooksRare as a marketplace does really well, like the ability to make an offer across everything and to see offers on all your stuff it's really cool. I think for a lot of folks getting into NFTs, it actually puts you at ease a little because there's always this question of this NFT, the floor's here, but it doesn't necessarily mean I can sell it. Um, on LooksRare, like if you're really in a pinch, more than likely there's an offer on your collection, unless it's a
Yes.
really obscure
I
small one.
and I've sold a couple items in there. I think it's like a great feature.
Yeah,
But couldn't OpenSea just like implement that tomorrow?
yes, and I don't know why they're not. I'm sure they have a good reason for it.
Yeah, maybe there's
or
a
they've gotten to
particular
the point where they're, yeah, they might be
yeah,
big and bureaucratic now, where like a feature like that takes like, a dozen PMs and a bunch of people
well, I'm
debating
sure
it, but I
there's
don't think
security
the team's
risks
that
for
large.
anytime they touch the code, there's going to be a risk. Something's
Hmm.
going to happen. And that, that's like a blanket purchase order.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, it could go sideways. Yeah.
yeah, and they've done their own payouts. Let's not just talk about actually they haven't paid out that
Hmm.
much, but they've paid out for issues that people have had. So they're probably very cautious. I just wonder for looks and like I'm staking looks. I think looks is kind of interesting because I think it's useful to have a competitor to OpenSea in this
Yeah.
space, the general purpose space. But it's not clear to me that that once OpenSea implements these features, which I assume they will, that there's any reason to use looks.
Yeah, I think it's on looks to really push things forward and see. I mean, one big question is why give me an incentive to spend looks in the marketplace, right? Like let me or incent. Yeah, I don't. If you just earn looks, but the looks don't do anything in the marketplace, it's kind of
Well, you
strange.
can
But if
convert them to
somehow,
WAF. The conversion fees are pretty high, but
yeah, yeah. But if imagine if they did like a little accelerator or a uh, new projects that let NFT artists drop their collections on LooksRare, and you have to use looks to get them. And if you hold looks, you get an early mint or some. I don't know. There could be ways to incent
yeah,
folks to
yeah. I
use
don't know what
looks.
they're doing along those lines, but they should. I think
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. That's like it's a
yeah.
really good,
I'm
good,
guessing
good,
they're
good.
thinking about it, but
Yeah, I mean they have
yeah,
this
just
cool
give.
mechanic. In any event, I don't know if it's true. By the way, I mean this is one analysis.
Mhm.
I've not seen another analysis. Everyone just cites the same analysis. I don't think there's any question. There's a lot of wash trading going on in there. And I'm not sure it matters that much because it got a lot of people into the marketplace, and that's a really hard thing to do at this point.
Yeah, and we know this happens on OpenSea too, even if it's just for creating spectacle and excitement.
Yes. Okay, so let's keep going with marketplaces because it's ridiculous. We've got these so many stories. We have
Yeah.
Autograph, which is a marketplace that Tom Brady created. It's really focused on sports. So they're going to have their first big drop with Tom Brady. They're doing it in concert with ESPN. So this sort of fits in that brands and NFT lands category as well. What do you think about this? We're starting to see more of these niche marketplaces come up, which are truly marketplaces. They're not just single brand. Um,
Hmm.
but you've got, obviously a very prominent person in front of this, and he's using a deal that he has around a story with ESPN to, launch the whole thing, and I think put Autograph up a level.
Yeah, I think we're going to see how all this shakes out. It's really interesting. I think if these types of places can make the NFTs have actual value and utility to collectors or to fans of that particular uh, niche, that's a big deal, and that will work. I do sort of think at some point we need the one ring to rule them all thing of like, will there be a place where I can consolidate all my collections from various, even if I can't swap them, how do I just look at all my stuff? That's
Yes,
where my mind keeps going to, and maybe that's not the case. Maybe this is something wholly new, but yeah, I'll be interested to see how
agreed.
that
Yeah,
shakes out. Um,
I think a lot of people in the market underestimate the value of a viewer. Just something because
mhm.
I've had this conversation. We've had this like relation to rally as well. That okay, yeah, you want to be able to do transactions, you want to be able to bridge chains and all those things. But what if I could just view it? Right. The first thing
Yeah.
for me, just from a
Yes.
convenience factor, because I don't always want to trade, right? But at some point, I want to see
Yeah.
everything in one place.
Yep.
So, um,
Yeah, and look, like people are going to want to flex that stuff somehow. Like, where do I go to show
right.
that I'm a member of that club? Uh, we talk about, yeah, a lot of these things are communities, right? You're building up a community around a collection. You need to broadcast that you're a member of that community in some form or fashion. So yeah, I think that'll be important. One of the when I first heard about this, we at Rally we had looked at this feature I'm just gonna say it because I think it's awesome. And if Rally doesn't do it, someone else should. Where a celebrity could just like take a video of themselves and then sign their phone, and it would mint that as an NFT, and it would be time stamped, and you would know that it belonged to them because they'd have to log into it from a wallet to do it. But you could get this real time moment, and you could capture a moment as an NFT, kind of like what Top Shots does.
Yes.
But just with autographs was the idea to start with.
Yeah.
But it's neat to think that you could have an autograph from a specific point in time. Like, oh, I got this autograph on the same day, you know, someone achieved some great thing in whatever their sport is or their
So here's
career.
my prediction
Anyhow.
is that someone like OpenSea is going to take all of these niche things and they're going to roll them up. And then we will be able to use them all across. And I don't know if it'll be OpenSea or it'll be somebody else, but you know, right now everyone's valuations are sort of stratospheric, but that won't last forever. And basically some of these big players are going to come and they're just going to buy up customers.
I mean, the natural fit seems like the metaverse, right? Like all this stuff could live there and I could show it off there.
Oh, we said I would talk about that, whether the metaverse or marketplaces are going to be more central to this space. Because right now, clearly the marketplaces are in pole position. But metaverses, maybe they could be a layer above. All right. Well, Tom Brady's not the only sports figure. Maradona's family. So this is a posthumous NFT drop. Is Surviving Children, I think it is, got together with NFT Club. They're going to drop this. They're going to do a bunch of different things. I just thought that was sort of merely interesting that, you know, we're not just, mostly what we've done so far has been living artists or, you know, living celebrities, you know, but now we're looking at, you know, collectibles for obviously one of the most prominent football players of all time and a superhero in Argentina. I remember that World Cup where he played such a prominent role.
Yeah, this stuff is interesting. I always struggle with, like, is there someone, what's the motivation? Like making money when someone's not there anymore off their likeness. I always, but
yeah, I mean,
there's
the family, they own the estate, right?
Exactly. Yeah. There's family and there's legacy too. Like that's, if it's supporting that person's values, and doing good, then that's great. But yeah, I always have to do my diligence when I get into projects like that to make sure it's
exactly
who's
like,
getting
you
what.
know, there's all these different marketplaces now. There's different projects. Are they going to be around? What happens if that goes out of business? You know, what portions on chain? And I was just looking at something the other day. I'm like, where does this show up on the blockchain? Or like now people are doing these things like, oh, exactly. We just talked about Star Trek. Is that an 1155 or a 721? I can't find it anywhere. I'm going to have to go into the RECUR Discord and ask it. Like, this seems like a very basic thing to say, what standard protocol is this based on?
Yes. Yeah. And I think that is going to, I also think that to me, that was always one of the most fascinating pieces of blockchain because I like storytelling and narrative structure. I always thought that it was neat that you have this ledger that tells the story of where everything moved and went to. And I think that's something that can be taken advantage of in a really neat, immersive user experience way where you could see the history of an NFT. So making sure that all that exists somewhere and that it can be accessed and parsed and used to present who knows what. Yeah, that matters. And yeah, to your point, what are the different formats? I just had this conversation with someone who is not totally new to the space, but was like, hey, why are there so many? I thought I was getting a 1 of 1, but there's like 100 of this NFT I got. They didn't realize that it wasn't a 721.
It's not always clear.
Yeah, it's funny.
I mean,
yeah, and when you hear everyone saying like, "Oh, NFTs are 1 of 1," it's a non-fungible. It's unique in and of itself, except there's 1,000 more of this one.
That's right. Well, you have an edition number. Maybe that's it.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So our last story about marketplaces, we'll go to VeVe. So a couple weeks ago, we talked about the VeVe issue. There was an exploit and had to had to do with the gems that they have. Now I'm not in VeVe. I think I have an account, but I've never bought anything on there. I think I tried to buy one thing, but I missed it, or I don't remember. But it's been a while since I've been in that app. This is off chain. They were doing some work to be able to create a migration to Immutable X a while back. But they have this issue with the gems, right? So this is like a reward structure that they have.
Yeah.
And apparently this isn't necessarily resolved. And there's another thing that I know you know a little bit about. A new update this week that they're going to now require KYC. So know your customer. It's a federal regulation in the United States for those of you not familiar with it. And there's also this update on transfers. Now, the first Twitter comment on this, I think after it was posted, was, that's a lot of words to say. We can't tell you what's happening next or when. But so they spent a lot of time up front talking about anti-money, AML, anti-money laundering, and KYC. So they're like, oh, we have to explain this to you noobs out there, which is fine. Okay. Particularly since it's designed for people who aren't necessarily on blockchain, right? Who haven't ventured into the other areas. But although there's people who definitely work in both. So I think we should talk about both items, but let's talk about KYC first. Do you believe that KYC, we just did this with Bored Ape, is going to be like commonplace in another 6 months? Or is it still going to be these hit and miss type of items for some of the projects?
I think all side chains are going to have it. But I think there will still be places where it so fundamentally goes against the tenets of why lots of folks got into crypto that I just don't, it feels like too hard of a line for, I don't know if it'll break into two types of things. Well, there'll be a clear delineation between these are all the KYC projects and here's stuff that doesn't do that really is decentralized, and you have a level of anonymity.
So do you think of like VeVe, like sidechain? First, do you think of that as like a layer 3? So we've got the layer 0, which is tools and transport. We've got layer 1, which is the ledger. Layer 2, which is basically functionality for scalability and some other features. And then layer 3, which is like a lot of people are talking about this, is the application layer.
Yeah.
Is that what? So is VeVe, like in your view, or sidechains, you think of them as layer 3, and then layer 3s are all going to have KYC?
Yeah, that's how I would think of it, I guess. That's like a creator coin on Rally, right? Because Rally is a layer 2, and the creator coin's a layer 3, and it's on a sidechain.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. I think that's a really interesting thing. So know your customer. I will say that Bored Ape just did this, and it was the best KYC process I remember going through. It was automated. It was like instantly completed, which surprises me because I've been through some of these other ones and people still seem to think that 24 hours or more to wait for your KYC to come through is acceptable. I thought the Bored Ape one was even better than the Coinbase one, although it's been a while since I've been through that. So Coinbase might be better on that front right now.
There was some friction, though. I still thought I had to jump between my laptop and my phone, and not to say that Web3 isn't full of friction already, but when you have so much scam related stuff happening in this space, and then someone wants you to take photos of your license or passport and enter in information about yourself, that's scary. And again, there was something very punk rock about all this stuff. As soon as you start doing this, that feels like it's going away, and it feels like there's people getting their hands on it and again, these aren't necessarily rational things. These are like reactions to what's happening. and how it feels to be a part of that. I think that one important thing I think needs to happen is if you're using, if we're saying layer 3 coins in an ecosystem, and you're not bridging out of that side chain, you're staying in there and doing stuff with them, I don't think you should have to KYC. There's a lot of kids out there, they're going to be playing games that are on layer 3s that are building assets themselves that they own, building,
I think
earning
100%.
coin. Yeah. And
I
yeah,
100% agree with that. I just don't know how, like, I actually believe that some of the layer 3s, side chains, are being too cautious in that area. They're trying to apply, they're trying to like take a position that they should be more regulated than they actually need to be.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and look who's doing it, right? It's corporations. It's not DAOs. So it's a corporation that's used to running business a certain kind of way and is subject to the law. When you have a DAO like this, at this stage anyway, it's sort of the Wild West, and it's like, well, people are going to keep doing this till someone regulates it and says,
yeah, I guess I think like there's this risk mitigation thing going through. I guess maybe that's the price of getting all these VCs involved, because they just want downside protection. But I think it is kind of a mistake because it does cut off growth, and there's some other things. But the other thing I want to talk about with VeVe is they've just decided that you can't transfer. You actually can't transfer assets between people too. So no more gems, right? They haven't decided what they're going to do with gems. You certainly can't transfer them. You can't liquidate them, whatever. But they've also suspended all transferring of items. And it's like, really? But they did roll out a new portfolio evaluation snapshot for people. I just saw like an update on that. I was like, oh, like how are they valuing this? It seems like you can only buy stuff right now. It's like the Hotel California of side chains. But we'll see. I'm sure they'll sort this out. But I was just like, this isn't. They're not overwhelming us with great communication on this front.
I think there's a lot of people. I think there are people that are native to this space, and there are people that are coming into the space. And I think that a lot of this stems from that.
Yeah, they're making it compatible. So they're making these new solutions that are compatible with Web 2, which is what most people know, or Web 1, and they're making it compatible for consumers, newbies, like we just talked about the idea of credit cards, and they're making it compatible for the people who are used to controlling the levers of power and influence, so that they feel comfortable because they feel like that's going to carry over. I don't know. It might be. I mean, you mentioned like we're losing the punk rock element to this. I still think MFers has it, from what I could tell. There's a few out there that are doing it, but there's a fine line between punk rock and just straight up fraud.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And I should say that about KYC. I mean, even at Rally, we've seen this. Like, it's more difficult to do bad things with KYC in place. And so I think there is a place for certain side chains where that makes sense. If it's a gaming ecosystem that's aimed at kids, or you do everything there, I think it makes sense that when you bridge out, you want to try and protect people from getting scammed. But I think there's other places where it just doesn't.
Yeah, look for that regulation coming down, though. This will be like Protect the Kids Act, and it'll be like if you are using any type of crypto, kids, you have to be 18 or older. That'll be one way that the regulators start to stranglehold the space. Be like, oh, we're just protecting the kids, and most parents out there aren't going to know the difference, and they're going to be like, okay.
Yeah, I don't. All this stuff is, yeah.
All right, let's keep moving. Let's go to brands and NFT lands. StarTrek, that's a pretty big brand. RECUR dropped their passes. I don't know, this was 4 or 5 months ago, promising all these great collabs with big brands. So this is the first really big one. They did the NFT new drop was, I think, their first one recently, and that's going to get you into like university type collectibles. But this is the big one coming from Paramount, Star Trek. There are a lot of scary headlines that Star Trek's going to bring NFTs out and the fans are angry. Then they cited like six tweets saying this is terrible. But then if you actually look at people like, well, how do I get it? And all these other things. So let's see. There's some details with this. So there's going to be 20,000 starships. And this is, I think this is what they're calling, they're going to do this as season. So this is season 0. And you basically can just get different types of starships, spaceships. And then season 1 is going to allow you to get crew. So you're going to be able to draft different characters. I don't know if these will be characters from the show or they're just going to be more like the Matrix, or they're going to be sort of these amorphous characters. But then once you have the ship and the crew, you're going to be able to go on missions and quests, and you're going to be able to like earn things. This is interesting because we're talking about a brand sort of doing this directly as opposed to going through a sidechain like VeVe or one of the open marketplaces initially. I believe this is all going to be tradable on Ethereum, but I like other Ethereum marketplaces, but that I'm not clear on yet because some of the details aren't out there. They had William Shatner on a Twitter Spaces yesterday, trying to pump it up. They've got more reveal stuff coming today. But what are your thoughts on this?
I get excited about this stuff. I feel like the Star Trek is such a world that I feel like they could do just the metaverse potential seems huge to me, and it's exciting. It feels like I think IP that people, what's the best way to say this? People are really into and dress up. Like if it's the type of IP where you go to a convention and you wear the clothes and you live that lifestyle, I think there's a real opportunity for that IP to build really neat stuff in this space, whether it's metaverse things or collectibles, in-world story things. It gets me super excited about it. In terms of the reaction to it, I mean, we've seen this. Those of us that have been here for a while know all the reactions to crypto and NFTs that are on both sides, right? Like this is going to save the world to this is going to destroy it. You can't create a rational argument to explain to people why it might be good for them. I think we need to start experiencing these things. And once we start to experience them, you're going to see a lot of this stuff go away. And that's really what it's going to boil down to for this, I think in particular, is what's the experience like? And that's going to,
they're really just, they're trading cards, they're comic books. I mean, they have that element to them. Just people like to collect things. This is a way to do it in a digital world. Plus, because they're digital and programmable, then you can use them for other things. You can do them for unlocks. You can put them in, and I was actually thinking about this, that they're going to have these games and these quests and everything. I started thinking Star Atlas, because Star Atlas is really sort of designed based on things that you would find common in Star Trek, Star Wars, a few of the other science fiction genres. So if they were ambitious, they could definitely do that. And Star Atlas sort of played out so much that they've had their own problems recently, but wildly successful. I think this could be really big from a gaming and fan standpoint. I'm interested in it. We'll see what happens. I'm not even a big Star Trek fan, but I grew up watching it.
I think it's really cool. I mean, it's great. It's great IP to start with. Hopefully the folks at the wheel are fans, right? And they do it well. And
and what happens is there's always naysayers. If it's done well, they sort of fade into the background and no one ever remembers that they said that. And oftentimes they conveniently forget they said it. If it goes poorly, they're with the pitchforks. I told you so. Okay. So Star Trek, we're looking for that. That's coming up this week in terms of the initial drop. And there's going to be a lot more news on that front coming up. We also had this really interesting thing of Volkswagen I just want to touch on. This is for South Africa. It's a specific thing there, specific program or promotion there. And it's tied in with the metaverse. And so you actually can, have these NFTs. You can go through this metaverse space. They've got videos of it. I haven't seen like any access to it yet, but then you can go on these little quests and you can get things up to, I think, a Sony PlayStation. It wasn't like, I think a lot of I think that's really kind of smart in some ways, because some of the people in the NFT space will be interested in going through this, but they'll be like, Sony PlayStation. Wow, it's pretty low end for the other types of things that you're getting in this space. But I still thought it was really interesting that they did just for the South African campaign. They went full in. Ogilvy put it together for them. I don't know what it's going to look like, but they are trying to gamify this and draw in NFTs for one of the ultimate physical world products.
Yeah. This one's on the border for me of like the brand stuff that's like, is this just a marketing thing? Like, is this just a stunt?
It's done by an advertising agency. Of course it's a stunt.
Yeah.
But maybe they'll keep it going. I just think it's weird that it's coming out of Africa. I mean, well, now, so South Africa might be a test market for them, and they might bring in some of their larger markets, and so that would make sense to me. A lot of people do this. They use Australia, Canada. It's different type of markets where they'll test something there. They'll work out the kinks, and then they'll move it into the larger markets. But I think it's the best, or it's the most interesting NFT integration I've seen from an automotive company so far.
Yeah,
because there's been several. And most of them are like really, forgettable.
Yeah, and there is alternate reality games. Have you ever heard of those? There's a point in the early mid 2000s where these alternate reality games emerged, and they were like marketing campaigns around movies. That's how they started. I think AI was one of the first ones, and they were basically these like rabbit holes. On the AI poster and the credits, it says something about role for a sentient therapist. Someone's like, what? And you go to this website and you could follow this little trail about this person that's like a therapist for AIs, but it's presented as real. Like, and then it leads down this whole rabbit hole that creates a really neat puzzle and mystery that relates back to the AI world. A bunch of these got really popular. They were super fascinating, created their own content and stories. But by their nature, they were meant to be these sort of like mysterious things that you really had to dig to get into. Right. So as a marketing thing, it didn't necessarily work. But the people that got into them, it was super hardcore. And Nine Inch Nails did one later. Halo. There was a company called 42 Entertainment that did a bunch of these super neat stuff. I think we're going to see some of that now, like a new space. Some of these folks are going to create really neat campaigns that might not. Volkswagen might abandon NFTs altogether next year, but that whatever comes out of that experience might trigger another experience that's just about the NFTs or the world they're creating.
Anyway. What's interesting is like car companies are good at storytelling for like the short story, like just to get people interested in buying the product. So they're not as good as storytelling is like films, but films aren't really good for this space because films are projects that have defined beginning and end. So they've always had this issue with sustainment afterwards, unless they have some sort of like merch licensing thing going on, which doesn't care about story at that point. So I think auto brands, at least they're persistent, right? And so, but they're not, it's so outside their core. I just don't think they're going to be successful with it because there's all these other pressures, and auto companies will be like, oh, that's just not important. Get rid of that.
Yeah.
But I could see some of these entertainment properties becoming different, much more like what we saw with Lucasfilm, with, this idea of a franchise and all these different moving parts. A long time ago, and then obviously Disney does this. They're the sort of the best known for this. But maybe a lot more of these films will take this thing, at least having this idea of having some sort of persistent presence afterwards.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. There's the tension that we're seeing of like NFTs for the sake of NFTs, and then these real world companies that offer some form of utility. You buy the car and you drive it and you get to where you need to go. At some point we're going to figure out how to merge those two in a way that doesn't feel forced. If I have the Volkswagen NFT, outside of it just being a fun adventure and advertising the Volkswagen and me learning about the car, does it give me some advantage
Well, at least like I actually
in the
think that
real
you
world?
could do some interesting physical virtual world integrations with actual
Yes.
driving. And so
Yes.
like this makes sense. I mean, driving games, one of the most popular categories of video games, you know, why
Mhm.
these aren't more integrated with your existing driving experience. I just put a report out on AI voice assistant use in automotive. And one of the things I recommended was people should actually start thinking about a game that's voice driven. So you're not looking at the
Mhm.
giant screens that they now have, but you get rewarded kind of like Foursquare or Pokemon Go
Mhm.
for doing certain types of things, giving people missions, giving them something to do. We don't have as many places
Yeah.
to go. We have these cars. What are they doing for us? Like just taking us to the grocery store
Mhm.
and back? And everyone's like, we're going to get back to normal. Well, I don't know. That keeps getting put off. But it seems like an underexploited opportunity as we sort of fuse these worlds. But you brought up something very interesting just a second ago. You said, is this something that's, you know, essentially makes sense? Is it something that they're just doing as a marketing stunt? Starbucks, apparently, in an all hands meeting, Howard Schultz, the founder, said Starbucks has great assets and those are going to be NFTs. So a car allows you to go somewhere, a cup of coffee, you can buy it, and maybe it helps you get through the day. But like, what's the point of a Starbucks NFT? I don't get that.
So I've thought about this long and hard actually, because coffee is like something we all do, or lots of people do. Uh, if you had a, if I bought a medium coffee cup NFT,
Yeah.
does that get me a free coffee every single day? I think something like that would be epic. If I can
Right.
go
So
in
then
and every
you're just
day,
tying it into your loyalty rewards program.
exactly, yeah. But ownership over loyalty rewards. Loyalty rewards is what it is, and we're all, and no one wants to go to a new grocery store and have to sign up for that crap again. But if you could take it with you and you could trade it for other stuff, or sell it or who knows what, and do it quickly and easily the way you can with NFTs on OpenSea or wherever else, I think there's something powerful about that, because now I'm basically like grinding, right? It's like a game. I'm earning money everywhere I go. Anytime I spend real world money anywhere, I'm getting some virtual currency that I can go and swap for something I really want.
Right.
But
I
if
think
I
it's
drink
perfect.
coffee and I have a NFT that gets me coffee every day, like I'm into that.
Well, yeah, and particularly for Starbucks to do something where you have to grind.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the
But
I
if
think
it's just an NFT, I'm with you. Like what? I don't care about
okay,
this
so
little
yeah, so if it's part of their
mermaid.
loyalty program, I think that makes sense. But I would think that the bigger value, if they really wanted to add the value, it would have to be cross promotion of brand. That's integrated opportunities. So it's like if you had a Costco membership, you can go to Costco, but like you can also like
Mm,
buy new tires at the Goodyear store, or, you know, well, actually you can buy those
that's
at Costco too.
interesting. Yeah.
But like if Starbucks is such a great brand, it's an everyday item. So strong loyalty. Dunkin' Donuts could do this too, same type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, but maybe you get free access to a theater as well, or
Yeah. Or are we going to start seeing VIP Starbucks, right? Like there's some like area of the Starbucks that you can only get in if you're it's like the airport, right? I get to the VIP lounge, the Delta
like
VIP lounge
like
because
the Amakashi sushi bar inside of the Fly Fish Club in New York.
yes.
You have to have the Omakashi uh, Fly Fish NFT, not just the Fly Fish NFT. Yeah, maybe. I like. I don't know. I mean, Starbucks is like they're mass market. Um, maybe they are already exclusive based on their price point.
They want to
I
have
don't
an
know.
elite yeah.
Yeah. Like, do you need a more elite segment of it? Maybe you could smoke cigars in there or something. Okay, so let's keep moving because we got more stuff. All right, so I don't know if you looked at this. Did you look at this? Outside Magazine is creating the
Mhm.
Outerverse. Okay, so
No.
NFTs, they're going to launch them, and one of the I guess interesting ideas for them, which I thought was interesting. So first of all, they're doing it on Solana because I feel like that's more environmentally friendly, which makes sense. Outside Magazine is going to be
Mhm.
concerned about that. We're seeing other people get hammered on, you know, concerns around environmental impact of Bitcoin and
Mhm.
Ethereum. But they basically are focused on NFTs for people who create real world experiences and really focus on engaging real world. And they said they were going to have integration with some GPS trackers. Like, they didn't say this, but if you think about like a Garmin watch, maybe even an Apple Watch would do this. Although I don't know that Apple would give you the API. That based on doing certain things in the real world, like climbing up a mountain or doing a certain hike or things, that you might get extra perks or benefits.
I love the implications of it because it just gets exciting with all the stuff that could happen. I'd be really curious to see how it plays out. When you talked about, just when we were talking about the Volkswagen thing and in car stuff, it made me wonder, like, oh, that'd be neat if on your dashboard you could press like a button and get a POAP for you being in a new state or something.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good idea.
But this is neat because I think you could do driving people to places or encouraging them to go to spots could be really, there's some neat opportunities there. Like, I don't know, there's a secret show or a sponsorship for from REI, or you go to the spot and there's a pop-up store where you can get merch related to hiking if it's a hiking thing, but make it relevant to where it's at. I think there's some really neat opportunities there. But that's a big thing, right? How do you get it? It makes me think of all the, like Uber and Airbnb and all these things when they started, right? They had to start in a small area to get a critical mass. And then they could branch out from there. Will this start in like it starts at, if it's nature related, it's start at Yosemite or something first. And that's the area where you go and walk around to claim stuff.
So it's interesting that Outside is doing this. And they're going to connect to some of the GPS trackers, or at least that's on their roadmap, but who knows if Garmin were to release this, I'd be like, oh yeah, it makes sense, because they already have the distribution. Now, Outside might be better because they can do Sunto and Garmin and all the other trackers, right? So maybe that's better because they're not going to be just tied into that one community. But I think it's a really interesting idea. Everyone thinks of this. First of all, most people think of Metaverse as it has to be goggles, fully immersive. Sort of starting to break that paradigm where people start thinking about it a little bit more as 3D, but on a 2D screen. This idea of like mixed reality, that you get some benefit in the digital space. Maybe you could see your avatar, or other people could watch your avatar going in a digital recreation of a real place. I think it's kind of cool. I don't know if they'll be able to pull it off. I think execution risk is the biggest thing in all of these areas, but yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, there's a neat, when the location stuff was coming out in Web 2.0, Foursquare and things like that, and that was becoming a sort of popular thing, and it felt like it had lots of potential, and then it sort of just morphed into like find a restaurant nearby or whatever. There's the notion of like stories that happen at a place. Like, you see all these amazing shots of, I see this on Reddit a lot. You'll see a picture of a spot in Germany or somewhere, and it'll show like what it looked like in World War II and what it looks like today.
Yeah.
And you can like, obviously, like it goes from, but there's these little things you notice, like look at that bullet hole in the wall there. It's still there. It's painted over, but you could still see it. I feel like with this type of thing, this metaverse stuff and having a virtual representation of a real spot, you could leave these stories there, and they could be about the place, or they could be about experiences you have there. So hiking is a good one. If I'm at, seeing some amazing thing for the first time and say, oh, I proposed to my fiance or my wife here, or this was the first time I'd ever come here. And you get this really neat, there's lots of neat stuff you could do there with mixed reality that feels authentic, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. The founder of Foursquare actually is doing something fairly similar with just, with AirPods, where like certain places, if you have his app, if you're walking around, it's got it open, it'll tell you things about the place you're walking by. It could be anything from a restaurant to street art.
That's cool.
Yeah. So there's stuff it could happen. Okay, so one more in this this area. There's a well, Selfridge is a store that people will be familiar with in the UK, high-end store. Fondation, they have a new project with Fondation. I don't know how you say Vasarely. It's a French museum, and actually, what they're doing is this is a picture of a tapestry. They are dropping some NFTs, and the proceeds are going to go to restore some of these artworks that they have. So I just thought that was really just like an interesting idea that they, you know, they're working with some artists. It's going to be some original art, and they're going to then use the proceeds to fund this necessary item. And I think for these institutions, whether they're private or public, that are struggling from time to time for budget to basically accomplish their mission, this is an interesting way to give some value to people, but also bring in revenue that you can then utilize to push your mission forward.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, projects. One of the things we don't see a lot of is we don't see a lot of physical products being coupled with NFT projects. Now you have one of those. You know, you got one from Danny Cole through your gift goat from VeeFriends, right? I don't know if you saw this though, that the politics is bullshit. These things that were sold for $1, I think they're 85 ETH right now. I think it's like the cheapest you can get one right now. Beeple's putting together one of his packages, and it's really freaking cool. You know, who knew that like we should own one of these things? But you know, it's got like one of the little digital frames, and he's got stickers and stuff in there. It's really pretty nice.
Yeah, VeeFriends just announced something like this too. They did some partnership with, I was trying to get the name of it, MetaRelics.
Okay.
And MetaRelics will let you connect your wallet and basically print any NFT onto a canvas that you hold.
Oh yes.
So
yes,
it's not a, but I think this is we're gonna see more and more of this, of like getting who was the other artist? I want to say Gemma. It was the NFTs, and they're all similar, but with the different graphics over the woman's face, and then you can burn it to get a physical print.
Oh yeah, I don't know what came of that. So that's Tristan Eaton.
Yes,
that's a good question. I have a Gemma because I like Tristan Eaton's work, so I bought it basically just to hold it. I wasn't really worried about those other things, but yes, there is something that's supposed to be there. I'll have to look it up. Someone was just talking about this, and I think it was Brian Fans. I was saying, you know, is there a service out there that can just tell me when items that I hold have a special value?
Offer. Yeah, I saw that on Twitter, that exchange.
And I'm like, and this is something that I've looked at as well. And there's no way to really automate it. There's like, you can automate partially, but it's still like, it requires people to look at stuff. And
especially now where so much of it is manual, right? Like there's a
he's got
deals made with someone.
He's got something like 1,000 NFTs from 400 some odd projects. I mean, it's like, there's no way he can keep track.
Oh yeah, it's overwhelming. Even with one project, it can be overwhelming if they're really active. Geez, VeeFriends has so much stuff going on. It's tricky to be a part of, like, understand what.
Well, I almost missed something too, like Cat Blocks, which I acquired basically because their creatives, their filmmakers. I thought it was a really interesting thing, but they had something rolling out, and you got 72 hours to claim it. And I knew it was coming up. Like I'd heard about it like a few weeks ago, but I didn't. And I just happened to look at it this morning, and I was like, oh geez, I've got like 4 hours left, or I wouldn't be able to get this extra drop. And it was free. It was just gas. So it was like $20 to get this thing, and it's going to be part of the community. So like I wanted it because it's worth it from an experience standpoint. But okay. Let's see. What else we got here? We have, I think you have a story here. I have a story too. Mine's not as happy as yours.
Oh no!
How many tokens, book tokens, do you own? I know you had a lot and you were accumulating. How many did you
I have
accumulate?
77.
77. And you got how many
I
rights to
got
mint?
25 spots on the white
25 spots.
list, on the
Okay, so
friends list.
you were
I did pretty
basically
good
one third.
odds.
One third.
Yeah, I was 1/3, yeah. And I
And
think the odds were 23 or 25%, so I did a little
yes,
better
you did
than
better than that.
yeah.
Well, I had 3 and I got 0, so I did worse.
Oh,
It did not even
well,
occur
well.
to me that I would get none. I thought
Uh,
about buying a couple new tokens at one point just so I would get it because I want VeeFriends too.
mhm.
But okay, it is what it is.
Well, I'll see how I get on my white list, and I might share some of those spots with some of the Mystics folks. So,
Yeah, that would be very,
uh,
very kind of you.
I
But in
think
any event,
the
this is really it's an interesting thing. So like, so
yeah.
you're really all in on this. If you acquired 77, because I think at one point you had like 5 or 10 or something like that, right?
Yeah, I got the ones from the books, and then I bought a few more, and then once they announced, because 'cause they're doing another thing, so if you held them, you got the opportunity to get on the friends list. You didn't have to burn just by holding them.
Yeah.
You had that
Yeah.
opportunity. Then the next thing that's gonna happen is after so there'll be a 12-day mint period for people that are on the friends list, and then there'll be a public mint, and then there's some new characters he's launching,
Okay.
and the only way to get those is to burn your book game tokens. But it's 5 like frames is what they're saying. So they released a grid of saying, okay, each day they release a new character, and if you burn 5 black frames, you could get that character, and then the next day, like, burn 5 gold frames. Um, However, there are more people holding the combos than there are NFTs, new characters available. So some of them, they say, will you basically enter a raffle. If you don't win, you don't have to burn your NFTs. You still get them back. Uh, but if you get the ability to get the new character, you have to burn the NFTs. I think the whole what he's doing with burning NFTs and making them, it's really cool because it's making people think about NFTs a little bit differently. And it's neat to see how it affects those book games tokens. Like, they all went up when they started announcing this stuff, right? And then as soon as this checker came out, they dropped in price. And he's already saying, like, this stuff's going to keep going. Like, now's a good time to buy tokens, folks, if you didn't get them. Obviously, he's fantastic at marketing himself. But I think that there's some really neat implications and he's used the burning to get tickets to VCon or to get Bored Apes or to get whatever. So I it's fun to actually be able to do stuff with your tokens and try and acquire certain combinations. So I'm hoping that some other um, projects look at this and think about it. And we've seen it to some degree, right? Serum with Bored Apes and things like that, where you had to make a choice. But the degree to which it's happening with the book games is pretty neat. Still clumsy having
Well, I
to
think
jump
if you're on
between.
the friends list, you're guaranteed to have a price under $1,000 for the VeeFriends too,
Mhm.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and you avoid whatever gas war disaster will happen
yes.
mint when the public mint goes, because
Yeah.
it's gonna sell out instant and
Well,
it's gonna suck.
maybe we should talk about a gas war disaster staying in the same family. AJ
Mhm,
Vaynerchuk, Gary V's brother, is the
mhm,
head of Vayner Sports. And so now they have the Vayner Sports Pass.
mhm,
So I guess this is kind of like Fly Fish Club, but it's for sports and it's going to be integrated. Like try to hang out or meet or get drops from your favorite sports stars. And
mhm,
so that seems all kind of you know interesting, but not particularly innovative compared to what we have today.
mhm.
But there was something very notable about this. So it was a stealth release supposedly. Um, but the bots were all over it. So,
Mhm.
kudos to AJ. He raised $8.6 million in funds to
Yeah,
help build out this project. But in the process of that, $26 million were burned in gas.
yeah. This was happening the friends list, same day as the friends list thing. I went to go get one. Gas was at, like, 8,000, and my mint price was so, I obviously we know if you've been in the space a while, you know, like, okay, so I'm not going to do that.
Yes.
And some folks did not
Well,
make
they
that
not
choice.
only spent the gas, but they didn't get, some of them didn't get their transactions
Yes.
through.
Yeah. Imagine a failed transaction of 20 grand or something. Yeah. Yeah. So here's the thing about this. That's like, there's tons of blowback, right? Like, oh, these are shitty contracts, all sorts of. The thing is, like, that may be true, but also it's on everyone. Like, you have to look at what you're approving. Like, I mean, come on. uh, yeah, it's really unfortunate. But good on them. They're saying that they're gonna find a way to make it right. We'll see what happens. But
Yeah, we'll see what we'll see what that means. I mean, like, people were like,
yeah,
"What do you mean you're going to reimburse people? And who are you going to reimburse? The people who are running the bots? Like, how are you going to?" You raised 8 million. There's 26 million that went to miners. So
hmm
there's failed transactions. I think they'll try to figure something out, because the brand is very important to them.
yeah,
But I assume they're going to do it not necessarily with reimbursements, but with new gifts or bring people in
yeah,
or
or
something.
some other special thing. Yeah,
No, if you can show you
um,
failed, they'll give you something else. That would be my guess.
yeah, yeah,
So they're not
yeah. That
empty-handed.
makes sense. Yeah,
Um, but maybe they'll just reimburse people. Heck, we started out, we
yeah,
talked about Axie Infinity. You know,
yeah.
they're
Who knows? I mean,
reimbursing.
I think, yeah. I mean, it's funny to me that people still act surprised when this stuff happens because I mean, this is how it's been. It gets better sometimes, but this stuff happens and you have to pay attention. And it's not, yeah, there's lots of things at work here.
All right,
Uh,
so we've run long again. We always tend to, probably because I just put too many things in there today, but it was fun because we talked about a lot of stuff. Anything that you want to leave the viewers with, parting thoughts,
I'm going to
projects?
watch the demo days recap. I want to see that. I wasn't able to be there. That sounds exciting to me. I think people should check it out.
Definitely look at the demo day recap. Some really interesting things. And if you're an artist, apply to become part of the accelerator. There's no cost to apply. We just interview people, and there's actually no cost to participate. But it is selective, and you just go to niftorian.com. Just you can read a little bit more about what the accelerator is. Hit apply, and then if you meet the first level screening criteria, we'll reach out and we'll do an interview. So hope you do that. If you guys have questions about it, you just go into the Discord. You can find that also on niftorian.com. Just go there. We have a channel that says like Accelerator Chat, Accelerator Public Chat. You can go in there and then you can ask any questions you have. But definitely do it. Like, the artists were blown away. It, like, what they learned, the connections they made, how much better they were able to make their projects. And they've got a lot of hard work in front of them because, like, having the great idea is only part of the journey, right? It's the beginning of the end.
hmm
But boy, some great ideas. So I'm really, really excited about that. Thanks for bringing that up, Scott.
hmm
You guys should check out NFT Mystics, Able Black, a couple of different projects Scott's involved with, Rally, of course. All things. He's got kind of the Midas touch in the space, I think we're learning. So keep that in mind. I'm CreatoriousRex on the Twitter. You also might know me as Brett Kinsella. I'm there as well, but all my NFT and blockchain stuff I do under CreatoriousRex because that's just more convenient. Thanks for coming, all you NFT hunters out there. Until next week, happy hunting.